Guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, wherever you're watching me from. It's your favorite girl again, Lola from Speech. I'm a registered behavior technician by profession, working under the supervision of a board certified behavior analyst, also known as BCBA. Welcome to my channel, and for you, my returning subscriber, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I love you so much for sticking to this family. And for you that you're just seeing my face for the first time, this is Lola Fumi Speech. If you cannot pronounce my name, just say Fumi Speech. That's all, it's fine. I'm currently working under the supervision of a board certified behavior analyst. These are individuals that supervises the registered behavior technician in putting their practices in order, and also to make sure that whatever they're practicing is in accordance with the board. So welcome to my channel. If you're seeing my face for the first time, please do subscribe. Consider subscribing to this channel and you're going to enjoy it. So if you're considering switching to working with special needs children, you're warmly welcome to the family. Having extensive years of experience in the field, I feel that I have not really gained a lot. So I'm not a consultant, disclaimer, I'm not a consultant or I'm not a BCBA, but because I have some years of experience, and coupled with the fact that I have handled quite a number of different cases or different challenges of children, so little tips here and there is what I have set this platform to achieve. So I am not a consultant. Disclaimer, I'm not a consultant, I'm not a BCBA, or neither am I a supervisor, though I'm currently working to become one day. But this is why I have set up this platform, for those that are considering switching to the field, and for those that are in the field and maybe in one way or the other they are confused with one thing or the other, or the activities to do. This is the reason why I've set up this platform. So if this is what you're considering, or if this is what you would like to be seeing, please stay tuned and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much in advance. So today it's a story time. It's really a story time. In my previous video, when I talked about how to become an RBT, yes, lest I forget, for those of you that have been asking me how to get the link for the free training, please refer back to that video, and I've put the link there. I think it's clickable. If it's not clickable, the direction to locate or to go about it is written in the description box. So I'm going to be leaving the link for the video, the previous video where I talked about having the training done on a free basis. So you could go check that video out if you're considering being an RBT teacher. There are instructors or teachers. So many people call them teachers, but they are not teachers because they don't do the stringent teaching, but they do a kind of therapeutic measures on the children. So stay tuned as I dive into today's story time. So welcome back. The first thing you want to consider, or I did, that made me pass the exam on my first trial, was I read books pertaining to the field. What do I mean? I went online, I made research about RBT. Though I've been working with the field, I've been working in the field for some time, but I do not have the qualifications at that particular time. So I wanted to have the qualification and then to be supervised by the BCBA. So once I got the BCBA registered me under her identification number, and she was responsible for me. That's the main thing. She was responsible for me, and then everything I'm going to be doing, she takes charge of it. So the first thing I did was to do my competency assessment with my BCBA. So my BCBA was actually where I was working, and I had the privilege of having her around and to make sure that I did the competency assessment face to face, not online, but I did it face to face, and it was a practical one at that time. I actually printed the questions out, and then I read through each and every questions and make sure that I understood the questions before I head on to seeing my BCBA. So when I was confident about like 50%, I was confident about the competency, and then the questions that I don't really understand, I highlighted them and then kept them aside. But those ones that I was confident about, I went ahead to start practicing them. And then after I practiced them, I was confident, not fully confident, but half confident. And then I went to the supervisor to explain. It was a kind of an interview, a mini interview, just like asking me questions before I actually practicalize it with my client. So in a nutshell, she asked me these questions, and then I was able to answer like 50%, that's half. 50% of the questions I was able to answer, and then the ones I was not able to answer, she put me through and then asked me to go and practice and study them on my own, and then come back to her for another review. So to cut the long story short, I went to her again, and then we scheduled a meeting where we could actually meet, and then she asked me those questions. I was able to answer like 80%. So the 20% she just put me through, and then those ones are like the ethical codes, which I knew was a kind of confusing. So after that, she put me through on the 20% that was remaining, and then it was time for me to now practicalize it. So now during the practicalization, we had to do a role play. So what I mean by role play is the BCBA will act like a child, and then she will ask me a question. Okay, now this is a scenario from the question. Act it out. You know how awful it will be you working with an adult. Though I've worked with an adult, but it's just like you're doing play. You're playing with an adult in a jovial way. But I didn't see it that way. I saw it in the way I just pictured my BCBA as a child. I gauged my BCBA to be a 2-year-old child. You can imagine. So that is how that's the first thing I did. So answering my supervisor and making sure that I am confident. Not that I'm seeing her as my superior, I'm just seeing her as a child, because I'm going to be playing with my supervisor like a role model. So when the scenario was read, I acted it out. So let's say, for instance, to a kind of extension. So if you're in the field already, you know what I mean. A kind of extension. You know how awful it will be. You running an extension procedure on on an adult, especially your BCBA. So I did it because I already rated my BCBA to be a 2-year-old child. So I am not seeing my BCBA as an adult, but I'm just seeing her. Sorry to say, I'm seeing her to be a 2-year-old child. So I did the first scenario with her. She said yes, it was a good one, but this and this is what you need to put in. And then there was a particular one I had to role play with a child. And this child, when you're working with a child, you need to be extraordinarily patient. So that was to try or to test my level of patience. And to cut the long story short, I actually did the role play with my supervisor, which is the BCBA, and role play with the child and with the client. And also with there's a portion that says interview, like asking you the questions and getting it right. So that's the first thing I did. I did the competency assessment. That's number one. So the next thing I did was I read books pertaining to the field and also devoted some few hours in a day to study. So you might want to consider setting out some hours for you to be able to study. Go online and study about what RBT is, the study guide for RBT, I'll be linking some study materials in the description box, so you could check it out if it's something that will be useful to you. It was very helpful to me, and then to other of my friends that actually sat for the exam. It was a useful tool, I must recommend. I wasn't paid for this. I'm just sharing what actually worked for me while I was when I sat for the exam. So I wasn't paid to promote the link or something. So as I was saying earlier on, I actually devoted some few hours in a day to make sure that there is no hour in a day that will pass without me studying something related to the field. So I devoted at least, even if it is 1 hour in a day, I devoted my time to studying. So you might want to consider studying, because it's not a rocket science. You have to study for you to be able to pass. I must tell you, the exams are very tricky. Even at the end of your studies, for you to be able to remember and relate what you have read to the question, it's somehow tricky. But I bet it with you, if you are able to devote your time in your studies, you will be, no matter how coined the question is, you will be able to pass it. So don't get tricky, just get studying. So guys, another thing I did was I did not cram while I was studying. I mean, it's so difficult to study, especially when you're working and at the same time you have some other things you want to do, and then you still want to study. So I can understand some few people, when they study, they tend to cram. There's no crime in cramming, but know what works for you best. For me, cramming does not work. So what works for me is, when I study, I pick 1 or 2 things and then use it or refer it to my everyday life. So what I mean is, I study, and whatever word that I come across, I highlight it and then see if I can put that word, or if I can coin that word to my everyday life. So say for instance, if I see a word like positive reinforcer, so I know that reinforcer is a reward. So what does positive mean? So I split the 2 words into two, positive and then reinforcer. So I know that reinforcer, which I've said earlier on, is a reward. So what does positive mean? Positive means something good, something in addition. So when something good happens, I get what? A reward. So when I put those 2 words together, which means when I do something good, I get reinforced, so as to increase my responses in the future to doing that same thing that I have already, that I was doing. So I don't go back to doing something I wasn't doing, but keep doing my good work. So positive reinforcement. So I want to get reinforced for me studying. So for me to pass this exam, my positive reinforcer will be what? As I've studied hard, the reinforcer given to me will be the success, the passing, which is the certificate or the congratulations. Do you get it? So I'm relating it to my everyday life or everyday experience. So guys, try not to cram. If cramming is your thing, and see if it is really working for you. If you have tried it maybe your school days and then it's working for you, so be it. It's fine. You could go ahead. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but know what works for you best. If cramming is working for you, I mean, we don't study to cram. We study to understand in our everyday life, in our everyday situation. So we don't study to cram, because when you study to cram, there is a possibility or there is a tendency for you to forget. But if you study to understand, then you can be able to relate it with scenarios. So what I did was, I studied to relate it to my everyday experiences. Next thing I did was to take notes during the training time. So what I mean is, while I was doing the training online, I was taking notes. I wasn't just looking at the video and say, oh, I understand this. Oh, I understand this. Oh, this is nice. Oh, this is, what is this? No, I was taking notes on every word that the instructors were saying. The ones that seems to be confusing, I was taking notes and highlighting them for me to be able to refer back to it after the training for that day. So I devoted my time for me to take notes. So you might want to take notes, especially for the terms that are so confusing. Guys, there are terms that you will come across, you will like, oh no, what is this? What is this? Yeah, you're going to come across some terms. They are not difficult if you can just highlight those terms or those words, and then make sure that after the training you take your either dictionary or whatever means you want to use to understand the words or the terms in a better way. Trust me, there are terms you're going to be coming across that you're going to be left, your mind will be left blown away. So guys, take notes during the training. So you just want to take notes during the training, especially on the things you don't understand. So guys, I hope you're following. I'm so sorry if this video seems to be getting longer. I just want to share this all these experiences or the things that I have done in the during my exam days in one video. I don't want to do it in parts because I have other videos I want to do. So the next thing I did was I studied some flashcards. So what do I mean by flashcards? So flashcards are just like a mini a squared paper. There are some terms written in the card that you're supposed to know. So for instance, let's say in the flashcard we have reinforcer, and then in another card we have behavior contrast, and then in another so flashcards are just squared paper. They are cards that you have to read through. So you read through and you study those terms. They are short words that just come, and then you have to remember the definition of this. So they are words that need definition. Let me just put it that way. So there are words written in flashcards, and then you need to know the definition of it. So I studied flashcards. So I went online, I made research on what the words meant, and then how to relate it so I can remember. Remember, no cramming. Cramming is not allowed. If it works for you, fine, but it doesn't work for me. I keep forgetting anytime I cram. So I just read to understand. Another thing I did was I created a study list. So today I want to study this particular topic. So I must create a study list. Like I want to study about ABC today, and then I want to study why behavior occur or behavior intervention. So those two examples of those two topics are my study list for today. I'm going to devote my time to study about ABC. The ABC will be antecedent, behavior, and consequences. So everything that has to do with antecedent, behavior, and consequences, I must make sure that I know it for that day. That day will not pass by without me understanding it. So if you could create a study list for your study, it will also help you a lot. So guys, another thing I did was I practiced the procedure, that is, I role-played with a child. After I did a competency assessment with my BCBA role-playing, and then in the center, I looked for a child that is very close to me and then did the same thing. Please note that you might not do the procedure on your own without the supervision of your BCBA, so that you can be put through on what you're doing right or what you're doing wrong. Okay, so you have to practice it under your BCBA so as to get your feedback. So I did the role play with a child, another child of the center that helped me. So I did a video of it, though I got the permission to video the child, and then showed it to my BCBA. And then she put me through on what I was doing right and what I was doing wrong. And then I learned through that. So you might want to look into role playing outside of your environment or your school. And then if you have not seen a place to practice or in a center, and then you just want to do it, just communicate or liaise with your BCBA on how you could meet physically, so you can be able to do this, because meeting online might help but not 100% helpful. It might be helpful in a particular, like the interview aspect, it will be helpful, but in the terms of role play or doing the practical aspect of it, you might want to consider seeing your BCBA, so you could do it in a practical way, or you could practicalize it with your BCBA, because practicalization is the key. Whatever you practice is what you remember. If you don't put it into practice, there's no way you can remember. So do this under the guidance of your BCBA, so you could be, guided properly. So buttress on the points that I made earlier on about study to understand and to relate it to your everyday life. You could also record yourself. Yes, you heard me right. You could record yourself. Sometimes you could record yourself on your voice recorder, on the terms, the definitions, everything. Record your voice when you're reading the terms. When you're reading the terms, record it on your voice recorder, and then play it. As you go along your busy schedule, or as you go along your day, you might want to play it and just be listening to it. It's a form of listening to music. It's just that it doesn't have a tune. And if you want to make music out of it, why not? You could make music out of it. You could use, reemphasizer is reward, reemphasizer is reward, reemphasizer is reward. And then before you know it, the tune will begin to fall into place, and then you'll remember. Because sometimes, so many people, we have different way of, reading, and different way of how we remember things. So yours will be remembering things through songs, yours will be remembering things through just sightseeing, or yours could be remembering things through gestures. So just find what suits you. These are the things that I did that suits me, that I feel that, yes, I think those steps that I took made me to, pass. Not forgetting the God factor also, and that I will come to saying later. So on the last note, manage your anxiety. I could understand whenever exams are approaching, even in our school days, we have this exam fever, we have this exam tension. It is all over the place, and then you want to manage your anxiety, you want to manage your stress level also. Don't say, exam is coming, and then you start panicking, because when you start panicking, or when you have anxiety, there is tendency that you're going to forget everything you have read, because the mind is not in what you have read. Your mind is now conditioned to your fears. So let's avoid being anxious about the exams, or what will the likely questions be, what am I going to expect, how will my friends feel that I failed this exam, how will my other colleagues. Don't put your mind in what other people will say. Just put your mind that you just have to pass it. You just have to pass it. I just have to pass it. I will pass this exam on my first trial. That's why my key point is, have a positive mindset, have a positive confession. Whatever you confess will come to you. Whatever you say will happen to you. So if you confess positivity, positivity will come. If you confess negativity, negativity will come. So it all depends on you. Whatever you have read, if you put it into practice, and then you have a positive confession towards it, you're going to pass this exam. So guys, if you are watching up to this time, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. The next thing I did also was I studied some case scenarios. So what do I mean by case scenarios? I relate the scenarios to an environment that I'm more likely to come across. So let's say, for instance, there is a traffic law in every country. So when you violate the traffic light, maybe the traffic light is about turning red, and then it turns red on your spot driving, and then you passed the red line, what type of reversal would the driver be giving? So the scenario of the traffic light is being, it surrounds me. I'm able to relate, oh, traffic light, I have traffic light. So if the driver violates the traffic light laws, he's going to be fined. So that fine is what? It's a punishment. Another thing you might want to do is practice interpreting graph. So in our school days, we know in maths we do graphing. So also you have to learn graph. If you're in the school back then and you hate graph, this is not the time for you to hate graph, because you're going to have some questions on graphing. So you might want to do some interpretation of graphing. You might want to know the type of graph it is, if it's a slopy graph or a scalloping graph. You might want to know all those the graph's name. So make sure that you study about graph. So to wrap up, I believe you can do it if I can do it. I did it and you can also do it. Have a positive mindset and a positive confession. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Please, if you have not subscribed, kindly subscribe to my channel. What are you waiting for? Let's love these children. I love these children with the whole of my heart. I have been working with them without regrets. I don't have any regrets, or I don't regret working with these special needs children. Why not subscribe to my channel just to help me promote this ministry? I will see you in my next one. Bye bye for now. Bye.